So
That's a pretty good start to a call there, right? At least it starts on a high note.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we can't complain, can we? Like I say, I knew it was coming. I just sort of, you never know. When you know it's, you never know if it's going to be a good outcome or not. So I'm glad it was a positive phone call, and like you say, it's a good start to a little podcast. Sort of recording, completing a deal, getting it across the line. So no, I'm pleased.
Do you do much commercial? Because I actually didn't know that you did commercial.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we're pushing it heavy at the minute. We don't do much. No, I'm not going to lie. We don't do a lot of it. It's our smallest side. When you're talking estate agency, sort of resi sales, resi lets, commercial side is our smallest part. But it's a side I'm probably most eager myself because I probably enjoy it more than. I mean, the resi stuff, you big sort of 5, 6, 7 bedroom houses. I mean, who's not going to enjoy that and love that? But your commercial side, I do enjoy because obviously you're dealing with business to business stuff. You're dealing with people who are sort of on the same kind of level as you. So no, the commercial side we're pushing at the minute to sort of expand that side of the business and stuff like that. It's amazing. Like I say, it's you get a good buzz, I think, out of the commercial side. So yeah, it's exciting. I do, yeah.
I love it how it's like chasing that next high.
It is. It's almost an addiction, isn't it? When you're in business and you complete a deal and you get a buzz out of it, you get like goosebumps, and then it's like, right, that's done. What do I want to do next? And everything I do, whether it's whatever business it is, whether it's property, etc., you get a buzz, and it is like an addiction. You start out with one and you think, right, I want to replicate that, but I want to go bigger next time and better. And like you say, you get that buzz. And I've got that buzz now a little bit. It's put me in a good mood. So it's always a nice feeling once you get something across the line.
And we're live. Welcome everybody to Prop Sessions, the podcast that brings together innovative and entrepreneurial minds in the property industry. Today, I'm excited to have Josh Walshe as a guest. Josh is a property investor, developer, plus the owner of a very successful estate agent and letting agents, Walshe's Property, as well as a financial services company. Josh is also the third shareholder in a startup groundworks and civil engineering company. He is also a local councillor in Scunthorpe, and he's actually the youngest ever to be voted in, which was about a year ago. And this is the crazy bit that ties us all together. Josh started when he was 17 years old, and he's now 22 years old and describes as still going strong, which is crazy. Welcome, Josh.
It's a long list there, wasn't it? It's sort of when you read it out like that, I think, bloody hell, the last 5 years for me have been, it's made it seem like a very, very long time. But no, hello, it's thanks for having me on. But yeah, sort of that's me. 22, nearly 23, though. In fairness, 23 in a couple of months. But yeah, so sort of like you say, started when I was 17. The first business, sort of the first kind of self-employed work, it was sort of back then, was the estate agency. That was sort of my baby, really. It's still the biggest business I own and I have. It's the one sort of everybody who knows me, if they think of me, they'll think of that company. Obviously, as you've just read out, I've got the other sort of ventures as well. But yeah, so we've got obviously the estate agency set up when I was 17. It sort of grew. Looking back, the milestones we've achieved on that, sort of when I first started out, I never would have thought that business would have grown to where it was now, let alone with all of the other business ventures and stuff that I've done. Obviously, estate agency letting agency, we're not sort of the mainstream estate agency letting. When people think of sort of estate agents, they think of listing houses for sale, selling houses, renting houses out, managing houses. And for the most, sort of that's what they are. For us, we like to be a bit more different. I mean, obviously, I'm young myself. We've got a young team. We like to sort of try and break the mold a little bit with that. We also do a lot of property deal sourcing as well through the estate agency, sort of as another arm off that. We also do renovations and maintenance, both for my own stuff and also for clients all over the world. We've got sort of clients ranging up and down the UK and all over the world, from sort of UAE, Dubai, etc., China, some out in the US. And we've got clients all over the world that sort of use our services for the renovation side. Financial services, like you said, that was a more recently set up one. For me, that's been going on about a year. the thought process behind that was obviously we had various clients coming through the estate agency needing financial services, and sort of my thought process is we're referring that work to a third party. We're getting a referral, we're getting a cutback, but I wanted to sort of be a one-stop shop. Really, is sort of when I'm seeing opportunity sort of come across my desk, I don't want to be passing that on to somebody else. So it was a natural sort of succession to me to get into that. And so I partnered up with sort of a local, well-known person within that business and created a new business. And then sort of that's grown and grown and grown. We've recently sort of merged with another larger financial institution. That happened a few months ago, which was exciting. Obviously got developments, etc., like you say, in various rental properties, and the groundworks company. I'm a third shareholder in the Simply Groundworks, it's called. I was sort of brought in to basically try and stimulate growth, try and grow and scale up that business, obviously with my sort of knowledge within the property sector and the local sort of contacts that I have. So business-wise and sort of descriptions of what we do, that's a brief overview. If you sort of want to go into more detail about any individual business, etc., please fire away.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, to me, one of there's just the craziest things is just the vast amount of experience you do have at, you know, where you are now. And, you know, I'd love to actually start, you know, where it all began, you know, when you first got into business, and I'd love to go into, you know, how you actually first started out in business.
Yeah, of course. So like I said, the first one I set up was the estate agency, but it wasn't a traditional estate agency sort of. When I first started, I remember I was a lifeguard. I used to work at the local leisure centre. I did from when I was 16 through to about 18. So I sort of, while I was first starting out, I was a lifeguard and setting up in business because I just couldn't afford to. I wasn't making enough money when I started out. I had rent to pay, I had bills to pay, I had to eat food like we all do. So I started, 17 was about the kind of age. I don't know sort of exactly what date it was. I've never sort of kept a record of that, which is a shame. But 17, started out basically working for people I know in the property sector. Got a bit of a family background in property with some relatives, etc. So I sort of already knew a little bit about how it worked. But to be honest, when I started out, I really knew nothing. I'm not going to be sort of not going to big it up and lie. I knew very little about property. I knew even less about estate agency because obviously the family background was in letting. So I started out in the letting side, and it was mainly being a runaround for people that I knew, doing decorating and doing stuff like that. Basically because I was a young person, I was living in a rental house. I wanted to try and make a bit more money, which was sort of my goal at the start. Was, has anybody got any work I can do to try and get a bit more cash in my pocket? And sort of that then quite quickly evolved when I realised that there was more opportunity out there other than just running around for people. And that's when sort of the letting side started, and I started getting involved in property management and the rentals. That then quickly evolved, and from the rental side, I started building up sort of a portfolio of rental clients. One of them wanted to sell a house, so I thought, well, I'll give it a shot for that particular landlord. Gave it a go, sold it through Facebook at the time, because at the time, obviously, I knew nothing about estate agency, no experience, no one I could even know to ask and say, how do I sell a house? But I did a bit of research on Google, stuck it on Facebook, and I think eBay and Gumtree and some other sites where it sort of was completely free. Took some photos of my life, I think it was like an iPhone 4S or whatever it was, and thought, house for sale. And it worked in the end. It sold. Basically all learning just off Google and watching YouTube videos of how to sell a house. I remember that guy obviously paid me, and at the time it was roughly about the equivalent of what I would earn per month as a lifeguard, was sort of this fee for this one house. And I sort of thought, hold on a minute, sort of I've done one transaction and sold somebody's house and I've been paid pretty much close to what I earn in a month lifeguarding. Am I on something there? And that's when I sort of really started trying to pursue can I make a go at this, basically? Can I make it work? I don't have to be a lifeguard, because sort of at the time I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I'd taken a gap year off uni, sort of still planned to go to uni the year after and do whatever degree I stumbled across, because I wasn't really sure kind of what I enjoyed or what I would be good at. So really at the start, it almost sort of happened to fall into place quite nicely for me. So obviously did that one property deal and then thought, can I sort of replicate this? obviously managed to do so, and then it slowly started to build up and turned into sort of a bit of a miniature business that I ran from home. And obviously, as that scaled up, I've reduced my hours till the point where I sort of left my full-time job. And I think that was the big thing for me, is when I left my secure, obviously employed job, and went full-time into running your own business, if you could call it a business back then. I think for me that was the big challenge, is because I'd gone from being safe and secure, having an income each month, to, if I don't make it work, what am I going to do? So I think that sort of being dropped into the deep end almost made me sort of think, this has got to work, because you've just left your job. And it did. I mean, it was slow. I mean, I remember back at the time I would have been 17, thinking, you can do it, give it a shot and see where it goes. And I knew nothing. I mean, I had no business experience whatsoever. But I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, I could always go back and try and get my old job back if it does all go completely wrong. I remember doing stuff like, I made a logo on my iPad. And it was, I first started out, it was Walshe's letting agency, because I thought, well, I'm not really going to do any more sales, but if I can push the letting side, that's a bit I'm probably better at. And I thought, no, I'll change it. So I released like loads of Facebook adverts, thinking, when I release this, I'm going to blow up and we're going to be huge. So I changed it all, and that's when it became Walshe's Property and Letting Agency. We've since rebranded, and it looks loads better, because obviously it wasn't me on my sofa doing an iPad. We got obviously a proper firm in. And one thing I remember putting all these adverts out on Facebook and sitting and waiting and thinking, the phone's going to start ringing any second, and we're going to be inundated with work. And I remember thinking, why is no one ringing me? Where are all the phone calls? So obviously I was that naive at the time. I thought, one ad on Facebook and it'll get us loads of work. And it was so slow to start off with, because sort of I really had zero understanding of sort of how to run a business. And obviously, as the months went on, I learned, and I started obviously to network and meet people, and sort of, I think because I was thrown into the deep end by myself, it was sort of sink or swim mentality, and luckily I've managed to swim. And since the years have passed, I mean, there's a list on my arm of sort of milestones that I can sort of check off that we've achieved. Obviously, running from home, I then managed to save up, buy my first house, renovated that while I was still setting up the business. Obviously, worked out of that. I then obviously remortgaged that, took that cash out to invest, and then from then there's loads of stuff I could write a book really, with sort of what's happened, to be honest. But that really is how I first started, and obviously once it was stable. And I always use sort of the snowball effect of, obviously, when you're starting out as a small snowball and you roll it down the hill, it doesn't pick up very much snow because it's obviously not a very big snowball. But obviously the bigger you get, the faster you're rolling down the hill and the more snow you're picking up. And it's massively true, because I look back at sort of what I achieved from, say, month 1 to month 6, and it's probably equivalent to what I achieve in a day now, because obviously we've just grown that quick, and things were so slow back then, because obviously I was a nobody. So yeah, that's pretty much how I started, to be honest. And then from then it's just evolved and evolved and evolved.
You mentioned kind of the snowball effect and how, you know, it takes time to pick up that momentum. I'd just be curious to know, what was it like being 17 years old and actually convincing somebody who owns a house that you're the person to sell their house? Just be curious to know how that came about. It's
interesting you ask that, to be honest, because it was a massive part of the journey. I probably should have even brought it up. It's like you already know my story. I mean, have I written a book and not know about it? No, it's interesting you say. It was a massive issue, and that was part of the problem. When I first set up, I was naive and thinking, I'm young. People like young people. People want to see young people do well. I'm going to be fine. There's going to be loads of work, and there wasn't. It was the complete opposite. And it was almost like nobody wanted to give me a chance. And it's still, to this day, I remember in the back of my head, I remember people saying stuff without using the expletives. What do you know? Why should I trust you? What are your qualifications? All sorts like that. And it was tough. And I mean, at one stage, I was very close to giving up. I'm not going to lie. And my friends and family know that. But I sort of kept saying to myself, you can't give up, you've got to do it. And the turning point for me, and still today, it's one of our unique selling points. I mean, estate agency, a lot of people, they ask me now that question you've just asked, Steve, and said, how did you get to where you are? You're in such a professional industry. How can a 17-year-old with no money set up? And estate agency is such a weird industry, because there is no mandatory regulation. So there's various boxes you've got to tick. You've got to have indemnity insurance. You've got to be part of a redress scheme. It's about £600 to start up, but there are regulatory bodies. You've got ARLA for Association of Residential Letting Agents and NAEA for estate agents. And to be sort of part of them national bodies, you've got to gain a qualification. And a lot of the time people were asking, what qualifications do you have? And I was sort of saying, well, look, I don't have any, because you don't need to. No one in Scunthorpe does, which is where I'm from. Nobody did. And I thought, well, if everybody's asking the same question, what if I just provide a better answer? The course to get that qualification and then join the national body is 3 years, but it's one of them ones where you do it in your own time. And I thought, well, if I just do that, I can, instead of saying I'm not qualified, but nobody else is, so it doesn't matter, I can say, well, actually, I am qualified and nobody else is, and that's why you should give me a chance. So I sort of, to me, when I realised that it was make or break, I sort of set all my hopes on, I'm going to get this qualification, because if I don't, I'm going to fail. And that's the turning point of where I thought, this is my last chance. If this doesn't work, I'm giving up. I sort of made myself do it. So I passed that course. It was in about 4 months. I mean, I'm in my office at the minute. You'll probably see these logos. I don't know if you can see that on the video, but they are the two logos, the two little red and blue one. Now, no one really knows about it. Like I say, it's such a strange industry, estate agency. And I know there's so many debates online about, should it be mandatory, should it not be mandatory? And I mean, I'm sort of for / I'm sort of against. If it was mandatory, I wouldn't be where I am today, because I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. But then I'm one for regulation, because I think it's important that people are abiding by the rules. So I enrolled on that course. It was an online course. You teach yourself. I remember getting a massive book. It was literally that thick, hundreds of pages long. And I thought, I've got to make this work. And like I say, you've got 3 years to take the course. I did it in about 4 months. Obviously, became qualified, joined the national body, and that's when people started to give me a chance. Because before then, it was very, very rare that I even got a look in. And when I could turn that question on its head and say, well, I am qualified, here's all the info on that, and even more so, nobody else is. And still to this day, it's one of our USPs. In the area we are still the only estate agency who is registered to both national bodies, sales and lettings. There's no other agency in the area. And I think that's quite important, because to your consumer, for you to say, look, we are all fully qualified, we are all competent enough, we're regulated, it gives consumer confidence. And now any new member of staff I have, I massively support their own sort of education, because for me it was important. So I think if it was important for me, I'm going to make it important for my team. So everybody in my team is either qualified and have passed, or in the process of doing it. So like you said, good question, to be fair, because yeah, it was difficult, and for me that was the turning point.
Yeah, that's so interesting. See, I didn't know that actually the qualification was something that I would have assumed that you would have to have it, but it's interesting how you took a perceived negative of, well, what are your qualifications? And instead of just saying, well, I don't have them, and trying to, maneuver around it, you said, well, actually, okay, you know what, I'll go and get them.
Yeah. And I think it was make or break. I honestly think if I didn't go and get them, it wouldn't have worked. I would, who knows, might still be a lifeguard. I don't know. I think that really was a turning point. And I look back at the journey, and I think there's probably quite a few examples of turning points for us. But I think certainly for me, that was probably the first major turning point there was to make or break. I think that was the first major turning point for me to make or break. So it's always exciting to look back, interesting to look back at sort of what's happened over the years.
So off camera, you run an estate agents and letting agents as your primary business, but you don't describe yourself as an estate agent, but rather a business owner.
Yeah.
What's the mindset around that?
I mean, so for me, I've fallen in love with business. I love everything about it. Obviously, property is the thing that I am best at. I'm not going to lie. It sounds like I'm not an egotistic person whatsoever. Anybody knows me knows I'm not. But property, I've found, is something I'm good at, clearly, otherwise I wouldn't have been where I am today. And I absolutely love what I do. I'm so passionate for it. But like I was saying earlier, I like the idea of having targets and goals and being able to achieve them. And for me, getting into other businesses, like I've done with the groundworks and the financial services, yes, although it's not core estate agency, it's still very similar. And obviously my role within whatever business it is very different. I mean, within the estate agency, obviously I still go out and value houses every now and again, which I enjoy. I enjoy meeting people. I even do every now and again, I do the odd viewing on a house because I enjoy it. I mean, my average day can be crazy. One minute I can be doing something to do with the council work, I could be doing charity work, I could be doing whatever. The next minute I could be doing financial services stuff, assisting one of the mortgage advisors, getting a deal across the line for X amount of pounds. I could be sorting out stuff with the groundworks company, trying to work out what our next contract's going to be, or an issue with that. I could be doing the estate agency stuff, helping out the team if there's an issue with a rental house or a property sale. I could be doing sourcing stuff. I could be one of my own projects that I've got on the go. I mean, I'm buying a house at the minute, which I'm going to be still not fully decided if I'm going to flip it or rent it out. So the usual normal day for me, I mean, there isn't one. I don't think I've ever had a day that's the same, but I enjoy that. I mean, I think it's a mentality of I spin that many plates. It's crazy, and I often get sort of asked, God, how do you sleep at night? The amount of times I've heard that, and I say, well, to be honest, I sleep so well because I'm not knackered by the end of the day. I'm definitely not going to not be falling on asleep. So, yeah, I mean, I love everything I do. Estate agency is my baby. It always will be, because that's the thing I first got into, and I wouldn't have been able to do the other things without that. But I can see myself getting into other business ventures. And sort of my goal and my mindset, and I can't remember who it was. I was at a conference a while back to a very successful business owner who would then gone in and set up other businesses. And I've got various clients that I work for in whatever sector it's in who are also successful business owners. So I like to try and learn off other people. I think it's quite important. I mean, I'm not naive. I'm 22. There's still a lot to learn. And people who are in their 40s, 50s, whatever, who have been there, done that, made mistakes, if I can learn off their mistakes, I mean, I won't make it myself, or I hopefully shouldn't do. And like I said, I was at this conference, and it was a lady doing a speech. Can't remember what her name was, whether it was anything. I'd love to find out, to go back and say thanks to her, because it stuck in my head forever. And she said, small businesses and small business mindset is you're working in your business. You're an employee within it. So you may be doing filing, or you're answering the phone or whatever, and that's only going to get you so far. That's small business mindset. Big business mindset, and the mindset to try and grow it. So you need to be working on your business, is the terminology. So working outside. So you've sort of got your business there, you've got your staff, you've got your team, and you're external to it. You're looking in externally to say, well, that's working, that's not, etc., etc. And you're working on your business, not in it. And that's pretty much the stage I'm at now, really. Apart from the fact that I work in the businesses at the parts that I enjoy, because why wouldn't I if I enjoy it? So I still do photography on some of the houses. I still do all that kind of stuff because I enjoy it. It's a passion of mine, going to houses, doing that. I still do valuations because I enjoy meeting people. So I very much now at the mindset of I'm working on it. I work on the businesses to help them grow and help shape them and helping in new ventures. And then I work within them on the parts that I enjoy and the parts that I'm good at. So yeah, that's kind of the mindset I have at the minute with the current ventures I have. And I can't see that changing as when, if any new ventures come up in the future. I mean, I'm 22. I've got quite a long time left in my life. So I'd be crazy to say to myself I'm not going to do any different ventures in the future, because I know that's just not true, because I enjoy it. So that kind of mindset for me is going to be sort of in place in whatever I do, in whatever business venture I get into.
Amazing. So looking a little bit more specifically at the property industry, obviously that's the main industry you're in. what is your personal view on, and look, everyone at the moment, what's one of the hottest topics? High street agents, online agents, right? It's the age-old battle that everybody, everybody has their own opinion on. I want to ask you this question because obviously you can see behind you, you're in your beautiful office that I've had a little peek at. You've built it from the ground up, invested, don't know if you want to say, a good chunk of money into that. And clearly you have a high street office, but I'd love to know, what was the reasoning behind that and what your general thoughts are on, the high street and the online kind of agents.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's a question that's been debated hundreds of times by people with way more years of experience than I have, and I enjoy watching the debates and listening into the debates because it's a very good question. And I think the true answer to that is, I think it depends where you are, as in if you're trying to be online and you're trying to have a pure online presence, it will only ever work in certain areas. I think some areas, depending on where they are, etc., the clientele and the consumer will want a certain thing. And B, I think it depends kind of what your business model is. I mean, like you say, we used to be online. When I first started out, obviously I didn't have an office. I couldn't afford to. I worked out from home. I just couldn't afford to rent an office or rent a high street place. I couldn't afford, definitely not to buy one. So I worked from my spare bedroom in my house, and it worked. It was perfectly fine. The last 2 months, we were an online agent. The office was shut because of coronavirus. So we shut the office. It was heartbreaking. I just spent tens of thousands a year ago converting basically a building that wasn't habitable for animals, let alone people, to, like you say, nice shiny office. We shut the doors. We went back to being an online agent, and it worked. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I never had any doubts that it wasn't, because we'd been there before. My thought process is there's always room for both. I mean, the reason I got the office was for a couple of things. Obviously, I'm based in a northern town, Scunthorpe, in North Lincolnshire, sort of close to Sheffield, Leeds, Hull kind of area. With us, when I was online and I was working at my home, etc., a lot of people were saying, well, all the other agents have got a high street office. And at the time, really, there was the odd purple bricks board around and the odd Yopa one, etc., etc., but it was mainly dominated by high street agents, because that was what was known, and your northern culture is they want to be able to see somebody, etc. It's quite different to your city culture. So for me, it was sort of like, well, if I'm getting told by potential clients that they've gone with X agent because they have a high street office and we don't, well, obviously that's going to think, well, I'll get a high street office if we're losing out on work. The flip side, obviously, as the team started to grow, we needed somewhere for us all to be together. And obviously I had plans and aims to grow the business and grow other businesses. That was always my goal, it still is. So I thought, well, if we can get a nice big shiny building, it has a place for us all to be together. And it's been proven to me even more so now, when we were out of the office for 2 months and we're back in again. The productivity of everybody when they're in the room together, instead of maybe working from home or not all together, is far greater. I mean, I think for us, we have to be a high street. I don't think it would work where we are. And I think for us, as a business, being on the high street is far, far more profitable than not. And obviously it allows us to have a base as well. It's for brand awareness. We've got, not trying to sound sort of vain, but I think we've got the nicest looking office on the street. I mean, I've spent thousands of pounds. I pretty much, at the time of a year ago, invested every penny I had into the office. I had spare at the time, invested into it. Like I say, I mean, I'll have to send you some videos of it just so you can see yourself. It was mad. Well, I remember when I first got the keys, because I bought it sort of off market. It was pre-auction, basically. I bought it. I walked in and I thought, oh my God, what have I got myself into? I was like, this is ridiculous. Literally, we went fully, everything in this office is brand new. We knocked down 5 meters of the roof because there was no parking. The old shop front was completely off. There was a staircase, pretty much where I'm sat right now, there was a staircase up to the first floor room, which was sort of completely a big empty room. So I obviously went through planning, permission, etc. Knocked down the back, got rid of this. Everything was completely ripped back to brick. and then we built it back up from scratch, like you said. We've got a flat above, because obviously that is a good investment. The office now pretty much cost me nothing. I don't mind sharing that, but obviously there's the tens of thousands of pounds of investment that I've got into it to get it the nice shiny office it is now. But for me, the return on investment on obviously having the building as an asset it's an investment forever, because obviously it's a property. So property value is going to go up. It's got a flat that I rent out, so I get rent from that. But the return on investment on, I think, having the office, having the high street presence, and having the productivity of all the team being together has made us way more than I ever expected in revenue and income from being here, compared to if we stayed online. It's very difficult to measure, I know, but that is my opinion. I think it was a very, very good move that we did to come onto the high street, to be honest. And I love being here, don't get me wrong. I enjoy, and I know the team and the staff enjoy it as well. So that's my thoughts. But I think there is room for both, and I think there always will be both. But I think it's, down to your own personal sort of what you will work for your business model. And I know various agents who have online and who have high street. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So, look, we've gone however long we've gone here so far. I'm not tracking without mentioning the dreaded word coronavirus, COVID-19. From your guys' point of view, as you said, you've gone from online to in an office past a couple of months, offline again, and it sounds like you're pretty versatile at navigating through that.
Yeah.
Now where things are, particularly in UK property market, what is your personal view on what the property market is like right now, and what it's going to be like in this post-COVID social distancing world that we're in currently?
So, coronavirus, where do we start with that? We have opened back up as of, it was Monday, let me check my calendar, it was Monday the 1st of June we opened. Obviously, estate agents were allowed to open, it was announced, obviously Boris in his speech announced, I think it was something like mid-May. I can't remember the exact date. They said all estate agents are going to reopen, obviously. I mean, the property market is the backbone of the British economy. It's the strongest property market in the whole world. So I totally understand kind of the route the government was going down, because it's the backbone of the economy. It needed to sort of get kick-started. When it was announced, I know every agent, I was sort of waiting to see sort of how people react, how agents would react, and how the consumer would react. Locally to me, I think there was one agent that opened straight away. A couple of others sort of waited. Some opened but didn't let people in, etc. We sort of went down the route of, we opened the 1st of June, so just over a week ago. We're doing sort of a one in, one out kind of rule at the office at the minute. Property market wise, I mean, no word of a lie, these last week and a half, we have been so busy. It's been mad. I don't think I can remember a time, property sales wise, we were as busy. Everything that we're listing is being sold pretty much straight away. If it's not, then, well, it is. Everything we've listed has been sold straight away. We're getting so many inquiries coming through. And yeah, it's gone a bit mad, to be honest. And I mean, nobody knows the long-term effects of what's going to happen. I mean, my thought process was, and it's going to get a bit long-winded here, so I apologise. Every year, usually, for us and every estate agent I speak to, the first sort of couple of weeks in January are the busiest time of the year for them. Everyone's got their own reasons why they think that is the case. My opinion is, obviously, over Christmas, usually the world shuts down, or UK anyway, shuts down for a week, 10 days, because everybody's at home, Christmas dinners, whatever they're doing. If they don't celebrate Christmas, they've got time off because business is shut. So during that week, 10 days, whatever it is, everybody's at home, they're in their houses, they're all cooped up, they're with their friends, their family, whatever. And I think there's a lot of thinking going along of, house is too small, I want to move. House is too big, I want to downsize. People are getting engaged and getting married and buying. People are falling out, getting divorced and splitting up. But obviously they can't do anything because the housing market, like every other market during Christmas, sort of during the January, December months, is shut. So what do? They wait. And then the first couple of weeks in January, you've got that backlog of everybody that was going to be doing stuff because they've been cooped up at home, is like, right, we're doing it now. As soon as we can do, we're doing it. So when sort of lockdown was first announced and sort of estate agency was closed, I sort of thought, well, like everything I try and do is spin a positive. I'm a very positive person. I thought, well, how can we spin this? How can I sort of turn it into a positivity for us? Obviously, it's a horrible thing that's happened. I've unfortunately lost friends, etc. So horrible. Everybody's been affected by it. But as a business owner, you've got to think, how can I make it so it doesn't affect us as much? And what I kept sort of saying to myself, mainly just to reassure myself really that everything was going to be all right, was, well, think about Christmas. And for the property market, because every business I've got, is in the property sector, so everything was going to react the same pretty much. During the Christmas months, we're dead, so is everybody, but we're all having time off, celebrating, doing whatever we're doing, and then we're busy. And I kept saying to myself, coronavirus is going to be the same. People are going to be cooped up, locked down, whatever, for 2 weeks, a month. No one knew at the time how long it was going to be. It ended up being roughly 2 months. And I thought, and I kept saying to saying to clients, I was saying, I think it's going to go mad when we go back. That was my opinion. We opened up, like I say, a couple of weeks ago. It didn't. I was like, oh God, here we go. It's a disaster. And then, like I say, last week and a half, it's been crazy. And sort of my expectation, my opinion, I think has pretty much come true in the fact that for the last 2 months, everybody has been sort of locked down. Even if they were key workers and working, they've still been sort of in their home more. And I think that encourages people more to think, well, actually, the house is a bit too small, or I want to live in whatever. So when it comes to now, well, we can go and move. We've been talking about the last 2 months because the house is too small or whatever. Now we can actually go and do it. Let's get on with it. And I think that there is now a massive influx in property transactions, which of course is good because it means hopefully the market will bounce back fairly quick. And I think, to be honest, it's going to level itself out. Obviously, I was worried because I've got investments. I'm buying at the minute. We work for loads of developers. I've got that. It's massively going to affect me and my livelihood. So obviously, I was scared. But I'm sat here now, and I'm quite reassured. I'm quite comfortable. I'm thinking, to be honest, I'll give it a couple of months. I think it'll have caught back up with itself, and we'll be pretty much back to normal. I mean, I can only go off our personal experience. We haven't seen a dip in house prices. Things have pretty much stayed the same. With even, I mean, the way house prices are pretty much sort of worked out. I mean, no, people have got the different opinions on this, but is a supply and demand kind of basis. We've seen some houses go for more because obviously supply and demand, there aren't as many houses listed for sale, but there aren't as many houses listed for sale, there's less supply but more demand. We have people bidding against each other. So we might have been seeing it go the other way. So for me, my opinion is I don't think it's going to have a long-term effect. To be honest, I think certainly the property sector is quite a resilient market, certainly in the UK. And I think already 2 weeks in, whatever, it's bounced back and we're crazy busy. I think within a couple of months we'll have caught back up and we'll be back to where we were September, November time last year, plodding along. What are your thoughts? What do you think?
Well, obviously I work with lots of different estate agents, and to be honest, I've heard pretty much every possible opinion under the sun.
Right.
You know, some have all that pent up demand, and it's great right now, and they think it's going to continue. We then got others who think there's going to be a second spike. Then got some who think, you know, the summer's going to be where it's at, and they're going to get their good summer. To be honest, I think really what it comes down to where you are. First of all, location, I think, is going to be really important. You know, how the house price is going to be affected in that particular area. And then also what kind of, you know, how have you structured your estate agency? Do you have a real brand? Do you have something that differentiates you that's going to keep you kind of at the top and people coming back to you? Like you said with yourselves, right? You have those USPs. You have something different about you. So my view is if you have that and you've built those moats around your business, you're always going to be okay because people are always going to come to you, right? They recognize that Walshe's brand, right? It's the brand that they're coming back for. That's my view. And I think it's going to affect all agents differently. I know lots of agents who have closed down, you know, who have just be straight out. Particularly, I know online has really been struggling in some cases. So it's a real mixed bucket.
I think it's one of the things no one knows the answer. Obviously, no one can see into the future. If they could, then wow. It's all opinions, and like you said, I think it's going to affect everybody differently. But with us, I've sort of, with my estimation, I think so far I've been pretty right, which is good. But what's around the corner, who knows? If there is, like you say, if there's a second spike, we'll all be back to where we were 2 months ago again. Obviously, everybody's hoping there isn't going to be, but who knows? Figures and data. I mean, New Zealand just announced their COVID-free, fantastic. The data, obviously, for UK, Scotland, etc., it's all lower and lower and lower. So it looks like so far so good, but no one knows what's around the corner. All we can do is plan for every sort of every outcome that we can possibly think of, and keep our fingers crossed, which is what I've been doing.
On another note, look, you've got several successful businesses already, right? But based around different sectors of property. Most people, it's no secret, most people struggle to run one business, right? Most businesses do unfortunately fail. How do you manage balancing all of those different businesses? And I'm imagining by your smile, this is a question you do get a lot. And it's a bit of a selfish question as well. I'm a young business owner myself. But how do you manage balancing all of those different businesses and still, help making them all grow at the same time?
Yeah. It's a funny one. Without going too much into my very exciting personal life, I've not had much of a life the last 5 years. I'm not going to lie. It's been mad. I pride myself on being a very organised person. And I go back to the spinning many plates. It's all about just having the capacity in your mind to be able to be focused on multiple things. Because one thing that sort of I always had in the back of my mind is I've got one business and I want to sort of get into another sector. I want to make sure getting into the other sector doesn't detract from the other business. It doesn't make the service we're offering on the estate agency any worse. I want to make sure it benefits it, if anything. And that was always my mindset, is I want to make sure, I don't want to spread myself too thin. I want to make sure that as we grow, no business, no client, anybody's losing out. Because I mean, the estate agency is my baby. I don't want to set up another business and then that start going downhill because I'm not focused as much on that. And it goes back to, I think, the working on the business, not in your business. As businesses grow, you sort of try to systemize things. I mean, like I say, I've got no 2 days are the same. I'm a very organized person. I mean, my phone has got a notepad on, basically, which I just write everything down. All the important things that I've got going on there, I write them down, because if I didn't, I just would be hopeless. Because there's always that many thoughts and things going on in my head of what business it is, what's going on, etc. I physically couldn't do it without being organised. So I'm just a very organised person. And I think, like you say, it's important having systems in place that then allow you to focus your time elsewhere. I mean, back in November, I went on holiday for a week to Mexico. It was an amazing time. That was my first sort of time off since I was 17. I literally hadn't had more than like a consecutive day off in like 4 years.
Wow.
It's mad. That's what I say when I sort of say, I mean, obviously it's, you have to make sacrifices for success. But yeah, when I was 17, to the age of sort of, November last year, I didn't go out and had a holiday. I hadn't had time off. I'm not ashamed to say that. I'd missed out on many things. I'd lost whatever I'd lost, friendships, etc., because of it, which obviously I regret. I regret massively on certain things, and if I could go back, would I change certain things? Probably. But it's sacrifice, to be honest. I mean, there's not many people that I know that have put in as many hours as I have. There's not people that I know that would want to put in as many hours as I have. And I think that's why when people look at me and say, how on earth have you sort of got to how have you got from A to B? They look at sort of where I am now, that long list you read out, and think, there's no way, it's impossible. In 4 years, you can get from there to there. And I think a lot of it is, obviously, there's doing things a certain way with obviously good business management, but it is just a lot of hard work. And yeah, my mind is always spinning around and I'm spinning various plates, but just making sure that you're keeping on top of things, basically, is the way I do it, and making sure I'm keeping focused on every business I have and that everything is running smoothly. And the good thing is for me is they're all within the same sector. And a lot of the time there's sort of business to business transactions, so they're all working hand in hand together as well. So there is quite a bit of crossover, which is obviously always handy. But yeah, it's not easy. I'm not going to lie. If anybody says to you, it's easy running a business, it's easy being self-employed, it's easy setting up a business, it's not the truth, unfortunately. It's the age-old saying, if it was easy, everyone would do it. It's not been easy at all, but I'm very happy with how it's gone. Of course, I would change things if I could. Who wouldn't do? If you could look back and rewrite mistakes, you're going to. But yeah, with the way it's gone, if 4 years ago when I started out, if I could sort of say I'll be where I am today, I would have gone no chance. But it's happened. So yeah, what are your thoughts on running a business as a young person as well? Let's not forget, being young and running a business, I think in itself has its own difficulties. What do you think?
I think particularly probably in the last 4 or 5 years or so, the view generally on running a business and entrepreneurship has changed a lot. You know, it's back even 10, 20 years ago, being an entrepreneur, running a business wasn't seen as admirable or a cool kind of thing to do. Whereas now we're in a social media, online kind of time where actually, you know, being an entrepreneur or a business owner is seen as a cool thing, right? It's seen as like a lifestyle in certain cases. And actually, I think it is really glamorized. I think actually, you know, people show, you know, on Instagram, all of the highlights, them traveling around, going to meetings and all of this kind of stuff. But actually, and I'm really glad we got into this part of the topic and you said what you did, because particularly for young people getting into it, I think it's really important to know the other side of it. Yes, there are bits that are of course glamorous and nice to it, but that's underpinned by 99% really hard work and sacrifice. And, you know, like you, I've been an entrepreneur since I was probably 9 years old, selling sweets in school, right? There's always a payoff to those hours you're putting in. But I think, you know, it ultimately comes down to, do you want to make that payoff? And I don't really think there is such a thing as work-life balance. I think, you know, things just kind of start to work in harmony. If you're doing something that you do love, then, you know, you don't necessarily need to have, you know, 6 holidays a year because you actually do love what you do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's one of them things where it is the lifestyle. The lifestyle, your life becomes your business. I mean, like I say, I took my first holiday, as in a week in Mexico. I went with my dad, which was nice. My mum wasn't very happy that we both all didn't go, but I took my dad. And we went, like I said, Mexico for a week. But while I was out there, I remember my staff, because obviously all my staff know, and everybody I work with know I'm always usually the first in the office, the last to leave. They all know sort of sacrifices I've made. And even while I was away in Mexico, I didn't do nothing for a week. That's impossible. I was still working. I was still doing emails. I was still doing phone calls. And people were saying, well, I remember Charlotte, who works with me, saying, Josh, you're on a beach. Why are you doing emails? I'm like, to be honest, I'm on a beach and I'm doing emails. I'm enjoying myself. I don't mind. Because I do enjoy it. Yes, it was nice to be on a beach and have some nice Mexican food and whatnot, but it is a lifestyle. If people sort of look at my Instagram, and I know we've spoken in the past about LinkedIn as well, there's loads of young people who are maybe not as successful as other business owners are, but through social media they look like they are because they have a better brand image about it. And then there's maybe people who are very, very successful, but on the internet, you think you wouldn't know. And I mean, I'm not a very publicly out there kind of person. I always think, I look at people's social media, and Instagram's a big one, and think, well, their life looks amazing. But I sort of think, well, I know it's not. Because if they're anything like me, which they will be to get to where they are, they will be doing what they're doing. It's not like that, because I know it's not. I can make my life look amazing with what I do, but I don't, because social media, I think, is quite fake. It's a tough one. It's a topic that sort of sways off business. Whether we should get into it or not, I'm going to, so tell me off if I'm going completely off course here. But I remember seeing an article about Love Island, the reality TV show Love Island. I mean, I don't watch much TV. I don't have time to watch TV. I've been getting into Netflix more because I've been working from home, and I've been loving the odd series. I've been getting right into it, but really, I never have time to. But I read an article somewhere that, whether it's true or not, I don't know, so don't quote me on this, but I read an article where appearing on Love Island is more profitable in that person's lifetime than getting a degree from Oxford or Cambridge University. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. I remember reading, I can't remember what article it was, when it was, but I remember reading that and thinking, it probably sounds about right, because the amount of money and opportunity there is now through this new sort of gig economy, online kind of sector, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Amazon businesses, whether it's anything to do with that, compared to your traditional going to Oxford, getting into banking or biochemistry or being a vet or whatever you do. I mean, I've not got a degree, I don't know. But I think, is that right? Is that wrong? Should you be able to make a shed load of money by posting photos on Instagram when there's somebody that's gone to Oxford who's very, very smart, who's slaved away for 3 years to get a degree? Is that fair or not? I don't know, because it's the way things are going. It's the future. So social image and the gig economy and everything online, I think it's only ever going to become more and more prominent, to be honest, especially with this coronavirus lockdown. And obviously you physically couldn't do stuff physically and face-to-face. Everything was online. It's a really touchy subject to people. And I've spoken to loads of people about it, because, I mean, my thoughts are, I don't know. I think I'm slightly for, slightly against. What do you think on that? I know it's massively off course of what we were meant to be talking about, but anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it's a prominent topic, though, because social media in some way or another is part of most people's lives, whether you kind of like it or not.
Yeah.
I guess mine's probably a little bit different to others. So I used most of the social medias for a good number of years. And then there's kind of a turning point last year where actually I said, you know what, am I using these platforms for business at the moment? And at the time I wasn't. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to delete all of them. And actually, I think 7-8 months ago, I just said, you know what, I'm just going to come off everything, and I'm only going to use what I need to use for business. So I actually did that. And
right.
And I'll be honest, my biggest fear was, how am I going to, how am I going to communicate with my friends? How am I going to know what they're up to? What actually happened was, I started having more meaningful conversations with my friends, because we'd speak over the phone. And those conversations would be better because we hadn't seen what each other were doing on our Instagram stories or our timelines. So we actually had stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
And honestly, my happiness probably went up from there. So I'm still at that point now. I have to use some for business, like LinkedIn and various other bits. But yeah, that's kind of been my approach in it. And honestly, not looking back at the moment. I've also, my screen time has about halved as well. It used to probably be, embarrassingly, probably about 4 hours plus a day. And it's probably now about an hour and a half.
Wow.
And that's just usually for doing, calls and WhatsApp messages. So
that's quite crazy, because that's quite rare for young people, certainly. I mean, I spend a lot of time on social media, not because I'm just forever posting things on Instagram. I don't, for work, obviously. But it's rare for young people to go sort of delete everything. I'm happy for it. I didn't realise you'd done that.
Yeah, I mean, look, those things they're still there. It's just that they're not on my phone and I
Yeah,
don't access them. You know,
yeah.
so
It's interesting. An interesting topic there because I've known of people that have done that, but I've not known no one I know, friends etc., who have done that. So it's yeah. Well, I'm happy for you if you're happier from it and it's worked for you.
I think the turning point for me was when I did delete all the apps off my phone. You know, they were embarrassingly on my home screen, and I would
Yeah, put mine on. I'm the same. Yeah.
I would unlock my phone and I would literally click in a pattern of all the different social medias, barely even looking at them, just because I was in the pattern of just doing that. And that was when I realized I need to take a little bit of a detox. To be honest, I've recommended it to a couple of people. Look, just have a little bit of time off and see if you can break the pattern. And I've had family members, friends do it. And, you know, they still use it now, but actually it's in a bit more of a healthy way. You know, they don't have all the notifications firing at them. And it's just it's a better relationship with it, because it is really, particularly during things like lockdown, that almost becomes your reality, right? That's how you're seeing. But anyway, yeah, that was way off course.
No,
But
I think it's something we're all guilty of. Everybody I know, similar age to me, we're all guilty of it. Interesting topic.
it is. So on a slightly different topic, so I've got a good number of other questions that I want to ask you, but I want to be mindful of your time.
Yeah, no, well, to be honest, other than eating, I've got nothing else planned for tonight. So let's not panic. We got takeout at the office today, so that filled me up. So yeah, I'm all right if you are to keep cracking on. So don't worry.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, look, I'd love to know, because you're still, even though you've done so much in a short space of time, you can probably still remember, I'm guessing you can based on your story, what it was like starting out. So, you know, I'd love to know what your advice would be to new agents who are entering the market now, and what your kind of advice would be to them, whether that would be, you know, the same as what you did, or if it would differ now being 4 years later. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think I'm ever going to forget the journey, because it's going to be a massive part of my life. It's a tough question, because I think I've got to sort of resonate. It's not easy. It is. I think that's how I would start out. If someone came to me and sort of said, "Josh, look, I'm looking to," and it happens all the time, friends, people that I don't know saying, "Look, I've seen X, Y, Z, Josh. I'm thinking of doing this. Can I have a bit of advice?" Happens all the time. And my first answer is pretty much always, it's not easy. Because I think that's the first thing that I wish I would have maybe been told, is it's not as easy as you think it's going to be. I think there's always that level of naivety in people when they're starting out, is they obviously, it's a startup, so they don't know what to expect. They may have sort of had other experience in previous industries or whatever, or previous business, and it's a new business trying to start out. But I think the first thing I would say is it's not easy, and don't expect it to be easy. Don't expect everything to happen overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day, as the saying goes. The route that you go down, it all boils down to really where you're at in life personally. Would I have done things differently? Well, it depends. It's all relative to circumstance. If I had 50 grand when I was 17 to invest in a business, what would I have spent that 50 grand on? Obviously, I would have done things differently, but I didn't. I had £600. I had to start very, very slow, because that was my only option. So I think it's all a question relative to everybody's own circumstances. If we're talking to a young person, like I was, who was starting out at similar circumstances to I was, I think it's even more important that, again, it's not easy, and be patient. And I think the way that I did it has to be the only way where you're not completely opening yourself out to massive risk, and that is the work while you're setting up a business. I mean, it's not possible in every job that you have. I know that. I mean, my role as a lifeguard, we sort of did shifts. We did 6 to 2, 2 to 10. So if I worked during the morning, I'd do business stuff in the evening, and vice versa. Obviously, if you work a 9 to 5 and you want to set up a business, it's a bit harder. But I think my advice would be, certainly if you're young, is don't expect it to happen straight away. And just to make sure you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, and you're not, especially if you've got responsibilities like rent, etc., where you've got to pay it to keep a roof over your head. Make sure that you're protected, and probably try and set it up so it's getting to some sort of level of success before you leave the job, so you've got that backbone and got that fallback option. Again, depending on what sector they're going to go into, it's not physically possible, but that would be my advice. And obviously, if they're at a different stage in life, they've got money to pump into it, etc., it's completely different kettle of fish again. Obviously, if you have investment, it's then where you're going to put that investment, what you're going to spend it on. Obviously, I didn't have that investment, so I had to make do with what I had. If I had that money, I would have spent it on all sorts of things. Obviously, I have that money now, and we spend it on a whole host of different things like office and marketing and staff members, etc. But when you start out, if you're young, it's you on your own, probably starting out from home with little to no resource, and it's going to be slow, and it's a grind, as you'll know. It's not as straightforward as you read on social media and you see on the films, because obviously bad news doesn't sell, unfortunately. Only the good stuff does. So that would be my advice, to be honest. And take your time, be patient. Don't expect everything to happen straight away. It's going to take time. Like I say, I achieve now in a day probably what I achieved in a few months when I first started out, because things now just happen and move that quick. So yeah, but I think as long as you're driven and you're motivated, you can be a success, I think. Because that's another big topic, is do you think everybody can make a success of themselves no matter what their background is, etc.? We won't get into that topic today, but
we'll bookmark that one for a second.
Save that one for another one, because it's quite an interesting topic. That, do you think you would have got into your position if you were born in another country? If you were born a female, is always quite an edgy topic of the male female gender. It's an impossible one to answer, but that's probably my answer, to be honest, if someone else was trying to start out.
And I think you know, that's the best way. I like the way you gave that advice, because you're giving the advice based on your circumstance, which was bootstrapping it, basically, right? Starting out. And I think that advice is probably more useful to more people, right? Because probably more people do start out that way, particularly nowadays if they're young and aspirational. You did touch on a couple of things, though, in terms of if you did have money to invest. You mentioned a couple of things like putting it into marketing, putting it into, you know, your team, into your office. I guess start with marketing. So for nowadays, what are your kind of main channels that you use for the business or marketing?
Well, going back a couple of steps just on that one quick. I mean, when you're talking about you've got a pot of money, whether it's because you've inherited it or you've saved it up or you've got it from a different investment, the way I do it myself, and the way that I know a lot of people look at when they have a pot of money, and they're using the word invest, because everything in my eyes is an investment, is I look at ROIs. I look at the return on investment. I look at, if I put that pot of money into X or into Y, what are the returns going to be? And still to this day, every time there's an opportunity there, whether it be a business opportunity or a property opportunity or a marketing opportunity or whatever it is, I look at, well, what is the return going to be on that? Am I going to be better off putting that into something else? So I like to use benchmarks, basically, in every kind of sector. So I use, when I'm talking about property investment, I use a benchmark of sort of what I would be happy with to get return on investment from that money if it was going into a property deal. The same benchmark I use for if it was marketing, if it was going into business, if it was going into a member of staff to join the team, anything what it is. So on the marketing side, so going back to what you said, I mean, when we first started out in setting up the company, the estate agency, when I first up on my own, we didn't. I couldn't afford to. I didn't have a marketing budget because I didn't have a budget for anything. It was, we advertised on Facebook because it was free. I then advertised on Zoopla. That was the first ever paid for marketing that I ever did. Zoopla property portal, obviously, which we all know, which you can advertise, obviously, houses for sale, for rent. And obviously, as the business grew, we started bringing in different kind of marketing tools and trialing things. I mean, we still to this day, I trial, as you'll know, different marketing options to see what works, what doesn't. We brought in Rightmove, that stuck. We still use that now. We trialed with Yell. That worked for a time. It now doesn't. We've left them. We'll use a local company for some local bits. We still use them. That's working. We use on the market. We've done Facebook ads. So there's loads of different routes of marketing that I use. I sort of split it into two main kind of fields. You've got your online and your physical. I don't know if they're technical terms. I've got no marketing background like you have, so you'll tell me off if you know. But I use physical and non-physical. So you've got your online stuff like Facebook, Zoopla, right? And you've got your physical stuff like leaflets, your for sale boards, your banners, and whatever else. And they're the two. I split it in half. So I look at if we're spending £100 on leaflets, what return are we going to get from that compared to £100 on Facebook ads? And that's the way I look at kind of returns on marketing. But I think what is so important, and I mean, as you'll know, I'm in the process of sort of trying to improve our marketing image. Like everything, I am quite a self-aware individual to know that nothing I have is perfect, nothing I do is perfect. Everything can be improved, whether it's the best part of what I do that can be improved. So everything else can definitely be improved. In the marketing side, we're having quite a big shake-up at the minute. We're hiring somebody new to solely do marketing within the business. We're doing various other new things at the minute as well. And I think it's important to be diverse when you're marketing. I mean, like I said, I've got no experience. I'm just going off. I do a shed load of research on everything, so I can try and become fairly knowledgeable in that field. So when I'm talking to people, I know what I'm on about. And I think what's important, I mean, you're the best person to speak, so you can tell me if I'm right or wrong after this. I think the best thing is being diverse, is making sure you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. I think if you had £10,000 in a marketing budget and you spent £10,000 on Facebook ads, that would be a disaster. I think you should probably spend £1,000 on Facebook ads, £1,000 on leaflets. So I think being diverse is important. And I think it's also very important to sort of systemize, like I said earlier, everything I try and systemize so it's then a lot easier to operate. Systemize what works. Again, it's different with every area, every business, every industry, whether it's property sales, financial services, whether you're selling clothes online on Amazon, whatever you're doing. I think certain things work, certain things don't. I think it's finding a niche for you and what works. And again, we're forever trialing new things because again, I'm self-aware. What works now, is there a better way of doing that? Well, I'm sure there is. Let's try and find it. So find what works, but don't be worried about trying to get better at that and keeping diverse. I mean, now we're pretty diverse in where we advertise. We do leafleting, we advertise on all the social medias you can do, all the main property portals. We've got various banners around. I mean, me and you spoke about LinkedIn. That's one thing I don't do at the minute, which it's still on my list. It's on my list because LinkedIn we do very little at the minute, and I know that's quite a good tool. So that's one thing that sort of for myself I want to try and do. But other than that, I'd like to think we're pretty good. But go on, you're the expert. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think separating it between online and offline is a good place to start, right? Because they are two very different types of advertising.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to be biased to online stuff, right? Because that's what we do. But the reality is, if you're talking about property and talking about estate agents, that, some people are going to be, is a 85-year-old man going to be on Instagram, or is he going to be in his house and more responsive to a leaflet, right? So I think it really, ultimately what it comes down to, and I really think you've hit the nail on the head here, is having it diversified, particularly if you're in, you've only got such a big audience, right? Particularly in Scunthorpe, you've only got so many people you can be in front of, right? So you want to kind of be empathetic to the fact that everyone's different. There are so many different ways you can advertise. So if you can kind of get them on each different touch point, then, eventually you're going to kind of talk to them in the way they want to be talked to.
Yeah.
And then I think, when you find certain things that work, you can then lean into them a little bit more. Like you said with Yell, that worked for a little bit of time and then it didn't. So then you kind of moved into something else. And I think you just do that, and then things work, and then you kind of push that, see how far you can push that until, kind of maxes out, or you get that diminishing return. Mm-hmm. And like you say, you're always improving, you're always learning. Our approach has changed drastically in the last 4 years. It's completely different to what it was. And that's because things have changed in that time. But the last thing on this segment that I wanted to talk to you about, and we've touched on a little bit about your team. you've got, I think, you've got an in-house team, which I think, for starters, again, coming from such a young person's point of view, is pretty unique. You've got a team who are right there next to you for various reasons that you've already mentioned. What are your kind of methodologies to managing a team, hiring, your thoughts on leading them? How do you approach that? Because I'd imagine, being at your age, some people might be, younger, some people might be older than you, right? So it's kind of an interesting.
Yeah, it's a very good question, because it's very difficult. I mean, again, I've got no experience in being a manager, managing a team. It's something that I think I'd like to think I'm good at it. I'd like to think, well, I know they are, because what they tell me they are, whether they're saying that to keep me happy. We're all very happy. We enjoy working within the business. But it's very difficult because obviously within the businesses, we've got obviously different team members in different businesses, but sort of I like to try and have the camaraderie and have the closeness. Everybody knows everybody within the different businesses, which is a start. I'm going to use the word friend and friendly, but it's difficult because it's business, and people say don't mix business with friend. And I know we had this conversation privately a few days ago, and it is a very, very difficult question. I'm sort of hiring as we speak at the minute for that new marketing role, and that's a completely an apprenticeship. Never done an apprenticeship before, no idea how to do it, but I've had some great support from a local training provider and the local authority to help me and navigate that, which has been really helpful from them. So I appreciate it. We've gone down the route, and they'll be sort of joining the team fairly soon once I sort of finalise who exactly I'm taking on. But it's difficult. I think productivity out of your team is the most important thing. Obviously, you've got to remember they're there to do a job. My kind of aim and target is everybody is good at something. Every person has a speciality, whether it's something to do with numbers, whether it's they enjoy filing, whether it's they're a people person. And sort of my target when I'm trying to hire somebody is work out what role do I have that needs to be filled. Do I know anybody that would be suitable for that? If not, advertise. And then I think you've got to find someone that's got the personal traits and will enjoy it. I think having happy staff is the most important thing out there. It's about the saying, happy wife, happy life. I'm not married. I don't know. Are you married? I don't think you are. Right? No. Happy wife, happy life is important. Happy staff, happy business. I've just created a saying there. Probably not going to stick because it doesn't rhyme, but I think it's important. And I mean, everybody, obviously we sit in the office all day together, we get on, etc. And we're a very productive team. But it's difficult. I think, I don't know if it's just because subconsciously I've done it and it's worked, or whether it's deliberate what I do, but making sure people are doing stuff that they enjoy is important. Obviously, it's always going to be hard because sometimes there might be things that they don't enjoy that they've got to do. And it's having that balance of sort of getting all on as friends and having that happy sort of mood, etc. But then also, obviously, it's the employer-employee mindset, which is easy on one sense when you're young and you're working with other young people, but then difficult on the other side when I'm young, you're young, and you're working with maybe older people. So it's difficult, and I still haven't mastered it myself. It's if anybody's got any advice on that, please let me know who's watching this podcast, because I'm nowhere near mastered the managing people and hiring, and it's something that I mean I'm not afraid to say I still learn new things every day. I'm well aware of that, and having a team and having employees, I don't like that word. Team is the word I use because we are a team. We all work together hand in hand. I think at the minute it's going really well, and I just try and replicate the way it works at the minute. But it is very difficult. And I think, like you say, making sure people are happy in the role that they're doing, they're happy working within the business, is paramount. And obviously making sure when you are hiring, you're hiring the right person for the job, and getting the right talent, making sure that obviously the role you're advertising, they're suitable for that as well. What do you think? I know we spoke about it the other day, didn't we, privately? It's a tough one.
God, honestly, I'll be totally honest. In terms of hiring, it's been something that I've been having to do for the last couple of years, and I myself, similar to yourself, never used the term employee. For me, it really is about a team. I'd never say the word boss. I look at myself as an equal, or
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
But it is. For me, my team's relatively young as well. Have had people who have been significantly older. And for me, I really just try to, when looking at bringing in someone new, yes, they need to have the skill for the job. But for me, it's really about the type of person. If they can fit in with the culture that I've created, or at least I'm trying to create, then all of those other skills are kind of teachable. But I can't really teach someone to fit with the business culture, because it's just not really authentic. So I look more for that first, and then if I can find, honestly, I've spoke to people before, and within the first 5 minutes I've said, if they can do what they say they can do, it's a goer, because I know that they're the right kind of fitness. But on the flip side, I've been wrong, But for me, that's the way I look at it. The person first. If they can fit, then the skills come second. If they've got both, it's it's a home run. If they haven't got the skills, then we can look at ways to train them up. But yeah, like yourself, still relatively new at doing it. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert at it. I learn from every single interview and conversation that I have.
Yeah, good answer. No. I mean, I think one time I interviewed someone, I think I was more nervous interviewing them than they were in the
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyway, that's it's all fun and games, isn't it? We look back and laugh now, but anyway.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. So, look, if we've gone through lots of we actually covered a lot of different topics that I didn't expect to cover, which I love. Moving into the second kind of segment, if you will. Less property based questions, more, just general based questions, called our quick fire 5. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about yourself, and, really just whatever the gut kind of answer comes to your mind, we can go and we'll see how this goes. But first question that and these are questions that I genuinely am curious to know. So hopefully other people will be curious.
Yeah, cool.
In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life or business?
What's a new belief, behavior, or habit?
Yeah.
God. See, I'm a bad person to ask. I have quite a few bad habits. I'd like to say I'm really good at exercise a lot or eat really healthy food. I'm not. I mean, behavior-wise, for me, it's easy. We've already touched on it, sort of, is that mentality and motivation of not giving up. I mean, habit-wise, there's loads of habits that I want to try and get into, but I'm really bad at it. Like, I spend and eat way too much takeout food, and I know that's not good for me. I'm trying to be healthier. I play a lot of sport. I play table tennis. It's quite interesting. When I play table tennis at a fairly high level, it was a lot better when I was younger, but not anymore. Got to, I can't remember what rank I was. I was sort of top 5 in the county. I can't remember, but yeah, play table tennis still ahead of. So physically wise, I'm quite a healthy person. But yeah, certainly nutrition wise, that's one of the things on my list. It's up there with LinkedIn on my list of things I want to try and do. But behaviour wise, it's definitely it's being motivated for me. You've got to be motivated to want it and be successful and not give in. But habit-wise, I'm the wrong person to ask on that, I'm afraid. I know what's the right thing to do. I'm just really, I'm not a very good cook. That's the problem. I'm lazy. I think takeaway, it's easier. It tastes way nicer than what I'll ever be able to make. I'll just get a takeaway. That's a bad habit to have.
What we need is for healthy food to be as convenient as takeaways, and then that solves the issue.
There we go. Exactly. Yeah. So you've got 2 to 1 there. You've got a bad habit and a good habit. So there we go.
I appreciate the transparency in all honesty, and brilliant. Okay, so next question is, what's been one of the most kind of worthwhile investments you've made and that can be in yourself, that can be in your business. Otherwise, that doesn't have to be financial, but it can be, whatever you would consider.
Yeah. I think it's very difficult to drum it down to one, to be honest. Financially, as in monetary investment, very difficult to drum it down to one. We'll do the financial side because it's a bit easier for me. Physical side, I mean, investment is just myself, obviously learning every day, knowing the fact that not having that naivety of I can't improve and keep educating myself. That's the investment. So on the personal side, it's realizing and being self-aware that you can get better and improve. That's an easy answer. But financially, investment, I don't mind sharing certain things. The office, as I've already touched on, was a huge investment. And at the time, it was pretty much every penny I had, plus borrowed from the bank, into the derelict, what was property on Oswald Road, that now is office/flat that I rent out. That was a very good investment, only because it's a physical property investment. It's obviously an investment for the business, because obviously now the business operates out of the ground floor space, and that has helped grow the business. I've bought out and taken over various companies, done company acquisitions over the years. I think the first company acquisition I did, which was a sort of a local rival estate agency, letting agency, was probably the biggest company takeover, the most successful, company takeover that I did, because that was October 2018. I remember that date because obviously it was quite a big thing. October 2018, I took over a local franchise business. I took them over, rebranded them under my business, and obviously took all their work, etc. And it was quite a big milestone. There was loads of articles. There was national articles. You can find it sort of Property Industry Eye, loads of stuff about sort of young 20-year-old buys out local agency that have been running for 50 years, because that's what it was. And it was a business that was sort of at the end of its lifetime, wasn't as profitable as it was previously. I then bought that out, and within months I'd made it profitable and turned it around. And obviously it gained us massive exposure, both locally and nationally as well. Because obviously, like I said, although we're based in Scunthorpe, we have clients worldwide. So it gained us loads of exposure locally and nationally. And obviously the return on investment on what I bought that business out for, because of sort of the current circumstances, to how I sort of changed that. And I only changed a few. I changed quite a lot within the business, but it didn't seem like a lot at the time. And made that particular business, when it was rebranded and put through my existing business, made it very successful in quite a short space of time. So it'd probably be a hard one to choose between financially the office and buying out that first business I bought out in October. They're the two, and sort of I get asked a lot. I know you've not asked, I'm asking questions on your behalf now. I'm a really bad podcast person here, so apologies. To answer your question that you're not going to ask is, would I do it again? Definitely. I get that asked sometimes. Would you do it again? Yes. If I had the same option, because obviously at the time, I mean, when I bought out that franchise, that was before I had the office. I was still working out online on my bedroom. And I remember going to the bank sort of saying, I want to borrow X amount of money, tens of thousands of pounds. I want to buy this business out. I remember sort of looking at me like, what? Why would you, we're not going to give this money. I was like, please, look, give me the chance. Let me borrow the money and I'll buy it out. And like I say, quite away, it became quite a big success. So, I would do it again. To answer your non-existent question of would I do it again? So I always get asked that, and yes, definitely. They've both been very successful.
Amazing. All right, so eyes out for future acquisitions then.
I mean, it's always the plan. I mean, if you look at the business growth, I'm proud of the fact it's natural and organic, because it's a lot of referrals and whatever else. But obviously, there's been quite a lot of forced growth from acquisitions. But then that forced growth from acquisitions has then generated more natural, because we've sort of taken over businesses. Them clients have become our clients, and now they're really happy with their service. So they're then referring work to us. So it's been like, and when I go back to the snowball effect, the snowball before was like that. It's now huge, because obviously things grow and grow and grow. But yeah, so it's personally is investing in me and realizing that I can always improve as a person or whatever. Financially, yeah, office/buying out that first business back in October 2018.
Brilliant. So, okay, what is one of the worst things or practices that you hear within the property industry? Or what's something that gets under your skin that you hear often, whether it's, in the office, whether it's online, whether it's when you're speaking to colleagues? What's something that you hear within the property industry that's kind of gets under your skin a little bit?
Loads of things. Where do I start? No, I mean, I have lots of pet peeves. I think if you ask any of my team, I'm quite particular in the way that I like things to be done, because, I mean, that makes me sound like a horrible person, but it's not, because I know what works. And there's lots of things that sort of other people do that annoy me. Loads of stuff, overvaluing houses when you're going to do valuations to win work. I mean, every estate agent that's sort of on the receiving end of that is annoyed by that. Again, I think a pet peeve, we've already touched it, the lack of regulation within the estate agency industry. I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that one, but I think it's important. I think regulation is important to some extent, not sort of maybe to extremes, but I think regulation. I'm quite a proactive and quick person, as you'll probably realise, because I sort of work at 100 miles an hour because I've had to get to where I am. So just in general, things being slow frustrates me, but that's mainly a me thing. And I mean, one of my everybody in my office always says, I say, why isn't this happening? Or why is it? And they're like, Josh, it's not happening at your pace, but it's happening at normal person pace. Because I always want things done quickly because I want to sort of strive for the best. I'm going to butcher this saying because I always forget what it is, but it's sort of, you're always better to do better than someone's expectations of you than do worse. I can't remember what the saying is, but managing expectations, I'd always rather exceed someone's expectations than underachieve. So I'd always like, you know what the saying is, yeah. So I'd always like to try and be quick and proactive and get things done. And I think that's resonated in how quick businesses has grown. So things being slow frustrate me because I'm quite a quick, proactive person. So there's a good few.
I can totally relate to that last one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So another question is, how has a failure or apparent failure, using that in quotations, led to a later success? Or do you have a favorite failure that you look back on?
There's loads. I mean, again, touching about what we said before, I mean, one of my aims was to always network. I knew, obviously, from early on that there's a wealth of knowledge out there within online and within the local business sector, a wealth of knowledge of people who would be more than happy, or I thought, and it ended up being true, more than happy to share their experiences with me. And sort of my thought process was, if I can learn from other people's failures, then I can not make them myself. Because I mean, you always hear on these podcasts and whatever TV show it is, that failure is good and it's good to make, because once you've made a failure, you learn and don't make it again. But what they don't say is, if you learn from somebody else's failure, you're not even made it in the first place, because you never make it. So I think learning from other people's failures for me has been important. But I mean, there's loads of failures. And at the time, they seem like massive, massive things. But looking back, they were all minor, because actually you learn from it. But big failures, I'm going to sound massively sort of vain here, but we haven't really made any massive failures. But that's down to because I have learned a lot from other people. I've been quite, I say fortunate, I don't know if that's the right word or not, but I'm very well connected now locally, and I know loads of business owners and whatever else, people who have been very supportive of me and still are. Obviously, a lot of people have seen my journey from where I was and where I am, or where I was a year ago to where I am now, and a lot of people have been very supportive of me and given me a lot of advice, because at the end of the day, I didn't know anything, and now I know what I know. And the only way to learn is obviously by learning, either doing it yourself or someone telling you. So I've learned a lot from other people's failures. So it's a bit of a different answer to that one. So on the spot, I'm struggling to think of any specific stuff to use as an example, but it's a bit of a different answer. Yeah, learning from other people's failures and just networking, talking to people. And you tend to find, certainly sort of where I'm from, and then even people I've spoken to who aren't where I'm from, when you get into a fairly open question and ask about success and failures, people are happy to share stuff. And learning, asking questions and learning from what mistakes they've maybe made in the past and thinking, well, so and so did X, Y, Z, that was a disaster for them. I'm going to make sure I don't make that same mistake. Has been a massive part of my thought process when growing and scaling up.
Yeah, I think actually, that answer is probably quite a lot more valuable as well for people, because that's the thing. We are that narrative is definitely out there. Failure is good. Failure is part of the journey. And yeah, of course, you're never gonna be flawless. But if you can learn it from someone else, it would almost be ridiculous to feel the need to make that mistake. And some people do actually need to make the mistake themselves to realize. I think it's a real attribute to be able to just look at someone else and say, okay, well, I can navigate this way because of what they did. So actually, I love that answer. Okay, cool. And then to close up, bit of a different question, but I think it could be an interesting one. It's your last day on the planet. You can't leave any of your wealth, any of your assets, the businesses to the people you love and care about, but you can leave them with one piece of advice. What would you leave them with?
Really? That's a good question. So I could leave what my friends, family, loved one with a piece of advice. I'd be happy. It's quite a sad answer, that, but be happy. To be honest, I think happiness is important. I enjoy what I do. I'm happy. I think if you do something and you're not happy, that's not good. So it's quite a bland answer, that, I'm afraid. But I think it's happiness. I mean, everything I do is for a purpose, for a reason. My aim and my goal. I'm working hard now at a young age, sacrificing a lot at a young age to be able to live and have a better life when I'm older, to be able to support my family, support my own family. I want to grow old and have a family of my own. And so that's why I do what I do. People ask me that, and again, I'm creating questions here so I can answer them for you. Apologies. But that's why I do what I do, for happiness. So I think the one bit of advice I would leave is do what makes you happy.
Love that. I love that. And actually, it's a relatively simple answer, but it does, if you have that as your Polaris star, and whenever you are deciding which direction to go, if you use happiness as the pull towards that, then actually...
Massively, yeah. Although it's quite a simple answer, if you look into it quite deep, it's very, very important. I don't do anything that would make me unhappy. Simple as. I don't expect anybody in my team to do something that would make them happy, because it's not right. Obviously, every now and again you do something that, I don't like this, that's annoying. I think, it happens all the time. But happiness, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it's the most important thing. We're only here once. You've got to be happy. So, that's what I would say. Make sure you're happy. What would you say? I'm going to fire that one back at you. You can't steal my answer, so you've got to say something else now.
Damn, that's a pretty good answer.
Am I allowed to do that? Is that a thing? I have to.
I mean, look, you can do what you want, right? We're jamming here.
Go on then.
God, what would I say? I mean, I'd say like you said, I'll be honest. I've given talks on happiness and how important I think it is important. But if I had to kind of give a different answer, I would say one of the things that, and I guess this is quite personal to me as well, one of the things that, has maybe held me back is caring about other people's judgments or what people think. And, whether that's consciously or subconsciously, I think a lot of people are affected by that. And, this probably ties around to one of the reasons why I got rid of all of that social media and why I became so much happier. Since I stopped, or tried to stop caring about what other people think of my decisions, that has improved my life vastly. And actually, I've made much better decisions, in personal life, in business, that have put me in a better position since doing that. And it's meant that I'm not scared to put myself out there, try new things. And I would, that's probably what I would pass on to, my family, my kids, loved ones, whatever it is to actually not care what other people think and do it in spite of that.
Yeah, a very good answer. I totally agree. If I could give 2 bits of advice, I'd give them mine and yours. But it's true. No, I am also the same. I used to care massively. Actually, it's funny you say it, because I did, and obviously I still care. I think you need to have an element of caring about your personal image and reputation. I think just to be clear, because I know what you said, so the viewers are aware. Reputation and caring what people think of you is 2 different things, isn't it? You've got to have a good reputation, obviously,
Of course,
in life and business. But I know what you mean. The personal image, whatever, because they've not flashing a Rolex on Instagram, stuff like that. So yeah, I totally agree. Obviously, having a good reputation is paramount, and that's what I strive myself on, is my reputation and the way I sort of uphold myself. But yeah, I would also agree with sort of what you've done. Slightly, I've not done the no Instagram, I'm afraid. I still go on Instagram, probably too much. But I have slowly started to not worry as much about other people's personal opinions. But yeah, the reputation side is still important. So yeah, good answer.
Fantastic. Honestly, this has been a real pleasure. I've learned a lot, not just about you, but from you during this.
Thank you.
Genuinely, I'm really
Likewise.
Really happy to go and I'm really excited to get this live and look back on this. I think that'll be a great place for us to wrap up. Just want to thank you for coming on, giving your valuable time. I know how busy you are. Just before this, you were literally closing a huge commercial deal, so we started 15 minutes late. So I know how valuable your time is, and just want to say I appreciate your time and you and what you're doing. And hopefully we can do something again in the future. Yeah.
No, I just want to say likewise. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for inviting me, and it's been a pleasure having a chat and going through all sorts of things that probably we didn't plan on going through before we started this call. But I think it's all valuable topics, and yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we could probably spend another hour chatting away about all sorts. So yeah, we'll have to do it again and maybe pick some different topics. So no, thank you. Yeah, I've enjoyed it.